Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and we talk with business leaders from all over the world who are here sharing their expertise and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses grow through outside the box visibility and automation strategies. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. You're here on a great day. I've been chatting behind the scenes with my guest today, and he's pretty amazing. We've had a great, fun conversation, and I know this conversation is going to be extremely valuable for you, and you're going to have
Yeah.
a lot of fun along the way. So without further ado, welcome my guest, Burke Franklin with Business Power Tools. So welcome, Burke, to the podcast.
Thanks, Heidi. Nice to see you.
You too. Can you start us off with telling us a little bit about yourself, about your company, Business Power Tools, and your role within it?
Well, the idea behind Business Power Tools, the kind of the grand scheme is, I always wanted to do something in the world. I wanted to invent something, make something happen. And I find that what I'm actually doing is I've created a business planning system, which has evolved way beyond that. But the idea is that it will help other people make something, useful in the world. And so if I can help you build a business around your idea that'll improve humanity, yay, let's do it. Or just a business to do whatever you want to do. It's always this, I've never ceases to amaze me. Ideas people have to come up with stuff to, it's going to fix this, it's going to solve a problem. And then they have this hard time turning that into a business. And that's where we help.
Yeah. Do you find that that's because like this, they're creative, like a lot of entrepreneurs and the people that have this vision of a problem that they want to solve, it's their baby. So they get attached to it. And it's hard to put that into the proper messaging and the action steps that they need to go forward. Is that what you find?
I see that a lot, especially with
Yeah.
inventors. You know what people have done, they often they have a problem themselves and they
Mm.
solve the problem. In fact, when they pitch investors, one of the things investors want to know is like, you're kind of like, what's my perversion of it is, what's a nice person like you doing in a business like this? Like, why are you doing this? And part of it is because, with anybody, if they're going to invest in your company or buy your product, it's helpful to know why you're doing it. So if you have a personal reason for this, that you had this problem yourself, you solved it, and now you've come up with this, and you looked around and you go, wow, there's a lot of people with this problem. How can I can make a business around solving this same problem for them? I think of what is kind of a poignant thing, but I think of this couple, they made a product for preventing children from drowning in pools. And you think, well, why would you do that? Well, our child drowned in our pool. So you think, ugh, you know, they have they're on a mission, and I think of this, there's a kind of, I tell a story combination between there's the missionary and there's the mercenary. And the missionaries will, they're on a mission to save the world at all costs. And just give me the money and I'll save the world. And of course, investors and donors and everything like, well, I don't know about you. You don't know anything about business. You'll go down with the ship. You'll stay with it no matter what. But you're not so good at this business thing. The mercenary, on the other hand, is good at the business. They're all about the money and they want the money. But if a better, they're not, their heart's not behind the product. And so if they find a better deal down the street, they're gone. So that gives the investors kind of the willies, I'll call it. But if you can put together kind of that, Goldilocks combination of missionary and mercenary, then you can succeed. So I think what we do is put together that business plan. The business plan builder helps you makes the missionary a little more mercenary and the mercenary a little more missionary to make it work together. And there's a gap between inventors and investors. They're only separated by one letter if you think about it. But there's this gap of understanding. And so anyway, but yeah, there are a lot of inventors who it's my baby, I don't want to show it to anybody. So well, look, on paper or screen, if you can figure out how to make this into a business, then you can see, okay, now you can figure out who can help you. But until then, it's just this, I'm holding on to my baby. They're so afraid of being ripped off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Burke, you've spent decades helping entrepreneurs and business owners build stronger companies through planning and strategy. What inspired you to create Business Power Tools, and what problem were you trying to solve?
Yeah, well, it just initially back as a kid, I would read Popular Science and Popular Mechanics magazines. There's all these inventions and things in there. You think about it, every invention for it to get out into the world, it's got to be made into a business because how do you afford to do this? And so making it, selling it, distributing it, getting it, all that marketing, everything. And so, but I just wanted to invent something. My grandfather had this business back in the 50s, and he came home one day, and I still live with my grandparents. He said, if you're going to make it big in the world, you got to invent something and sell it and live happily ever after, kind of a thing. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I have no idea what. Actually, my very first business was I thought, what could I do? So I set up a table out on the sidewalk, and my grandparents were behind Reagan for governor of California. And I had Ronald Reagan buttons out there on my table for 25 cents. I was trying to sell these as like a 6 year old, I think. I don't know how old I was, maybe 6 or 7. And my mom bought one, my grandmother bought one, and nobody else stopped by to buy one. And of course, I had no sign either. So what did I know about marketing? Obviously, I sucked at it, but that was the start. But later on, I'd worked for Texas Instruments selling electronics. I got a job at the Sharper Image catalog as the electronics buyer. So I figure I'm selling. Maybe it'd be easier if I was a buyer because buying is easier than selling, which I think it's worse. I saw every sales trick in the book come at me, during this as a buyer of the Sharper Image. And the Sharper Image, in case you don't remember or know, I think of it as a guy gadget catalog. I think they're still around online, but they'd send out 6 million catalogs like a quarter. So it was a serious business. And they moved me over to the catalog copy department because they liked how I explained the product to customers. And then from there, I discovered a word processor I sold in Silicon to enterprises in Silicon Valley. Now, all that to add up, this is kind of adding up to like, okay, so there I am kicking around Silicon Valley because you can imagine word processors, they didn't last very long because Macs and PCs came out. And so all of a sudden, the word processor company went away. And there I am in Silicon Valley thinking, okay, what do I want to do next? And I really didn't know what, but I figured I'm just going to make karma payments, I call it. I'm just going to help people, whatever they need. I made business cards, I made data sheets, I made brochures, I made a catalog for one guy with all these electronic tools. And then a friend of mine called me up, or his friend became a client. He says, I got this opportunity. Apple wants to buy my engineering software, not his company, just his product. And at the time, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, had done a study of 26,000 businesses that failed. And they wanted to know like what's common about these businesses that failed. And they found that 65+% of them had no business plan. Now,
Wow.
I knew nothing about business plans. I'm not a planning guy. My job was to source bright, shiny objects for a catalog. That was fun. I could do that, you know. But putting a plan together, like, okay. But I thought, okay, wait a minute. So Apple's executives wanted to see his plan because they needed to be sure that his company would survive, thrive, and continue to develop and support the product because I would imagine they were betting the farm on it because it was a serious electrical engineering software analysis system. Anyway, long story short, we got the deal. Now, I saw this plan really kind of as a catalog of answers to the inevitable questions that the executives were going to ask. And I think of a business plan today really as a catalog of answers that the investors are inevitably going to ask, which is why it takes so long to raise capital because the entrepreneurs don't anticipate the questions they're going to ask or why they're going to ask them. They certainly don't have any data with them. And answers like, there's a lot of people out there who want this is not an answer. I mean, it's an answer, but it's like, give me something I could believe, give me something I could bet on, because that's what they're doing. And they're betting on the jockey more than the horse. And that means they're betting on you and your team. So they want to know. So I just answered my why me question right there. You asked it, but that's the answer the investors want to hear is like, what's a nice person like you doing in a business like this? Like, what is the problem you solved for yourself that you did this? And the last part of my little story there is that after I helped him with his business plan and he got the deal with Apple, I thought, well, okay, I can write business plans for people. I can help people do this. And so I started helping people with business, organizing their plans, structuring their financial models, putting their pitch decks together, coaching them on pitching it, coaching these inventors who didn't want to reveal their baby, how do we safely go out and tell people about this and not worry that they're going to steal your idea? Because the likelihood of them stealing your idea, actually building a business on, actually selling a product, actually putting it all together and doing it is so remote that it's unlikely your idea is just going to get stolen. Anyway, about a year into this, I had written, a dozen plans for people, and I'm thinking, I need a template so I can do this faster and better for myself. And so I'm gathering up all this content I developed from all these business plans in different industries. There's medical products or some electronic products, service businesses, and they all raised capital in Silicon Valley. That was the whole point. That's what brought them to me. Really, the so-called gun to their head was, yeah, we'd love to invest in you, but show me your business plan. And so I'm thinking, so that's what we did. And so I thought, well, why don't I just take all this content and create a template for myself? And in the middle of putting this whole thing together, I'm looking at this, oh my God, there's my product, you know. So I solved my own problem. That's the thing. You solve your own problem, and then you look around for other people who else has this problem. Well, every inventor on the planet has this problem. Every entrepreneur, every startup has this issue. How do you pitch this business to investors? How do you make this thing make sense? And I made this template. And first, it was just a big Word document that you could edit. Then I added spreadsheets and broke it down. And long story short, now it's all based on a platform. And I've recently added AI to it because I was going to go through and use it myself again. Just think I'm gonna put AI in this thing, but then how am I going to do that? And I looked at my own content that had been accumulating over 5 years. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is daunting. I don't even want to use it. And I thought, what am I going to do? And so I thought, what if I put a few word AI prompts to say, okay, use this content, do this, say, grab all this, turn this, answer, do the research that these prompts are wanting. Well, that just changed everything. And all of a sudden, the business plan is just cranks out content, and there's a lot to the plan. And I would challenge anybody, and they look at all the sections and subsections and say, which one of these sections are you going to ignore? Which one of these sections is an investor going to overlook? They're certainly going to look at the risk. They're all about risk. They're more worried about losing the money they put into a business before they even think about how much money they're going to make on it. So you got to cover that. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent, but that's all really how it all started and how it's grown into what it is today. Then we added marketing plan, which picked up where the business plan left off. Then, hey, what about an employee handbook? That's a template. We could do that. And a safety plan, all the OSHA
Right.
stuff you got to have. Don't wear a necktie around the drill press because that's bad. You know, keep your hands out of the machinery. Watch out for that robot spinning around. Anyway, and all kinds of spreadsheets. They were all spreadsheets that I needed, that we needed in the business, the market analysis spreadsheets. What's the lifetime value of a customer? That's a good one. And I see
Yeah.
a lot of those. A lot of these spreadsheets are really kind of flimsy. They don't really answer the question fully or help you do it. Anyway, that's what's all involved in it and how it's evolved.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And you mentioned a few things that I want to pull from, and I love everything you said. I love the karma payments. That was awesome. And I remember Sharper Image. That was a must stop, a must go to stop in every mall adventure that I had. I
Yes.
had to go to
Yeah.
Sharper Image and play with the toys and the gadgets and see what was new in the store. So you first brought back some memories there
A lot of
of
fun
Sharper
stuff
Image.
there. Yeah.
They did have a lot of fun stuff. So one thing you shared was there's a lot of things, but one is that I noticed that you evolved, which is really important. So before we dive into that in your evolution, because you started with one product, and the reason for people to have this product is for if you want investors, you need to have a business plan. That is a
Yeah.
must have for them to even look at investing in you. And then you added on the other plans on top of it that grows from the business plan.
Yeah.
And I can see how that is a big need for companies because, like you said, 65 of the businesses that fail, 65% of them did not have business plans. And a business plan can feel really daunting for someone just breaking into it, especially if that is not their zone of genius. They're the creative, they're the inventor, or this is their baby, whatever it is that they're the problem that they're
It
solving,
is
whether it's a
horrifically daunting.
product or yeah,
That was the
it's
word I
very
used when I
daunting.
looked at my own content. I said, "Oh my God, this is daunting. No wonder people don't want to do it."
Yeah, they just
Yeah.
put it off. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. Or
Forever
they
they
don't
put
even
it. They
know
don't
where to
ever do it.
begin.
Yeah, they don't just put it
Right. They
off. They
just do
don't.
it. So my question for you is when it comes to like the business plan, I know, well, first, who is it that you specifically work for with? Is it are you pretty agnostic or is there a certain stage of business? I know inventors is one of them. And is the goal for the people that you work with to be working with investors? Is that who you work with, or do you work with different types of companies, whether they want investors or not?
Yeah, oftentimes the usual initial, like I said, gun to the head is an investor, but really I think I would say it's only 20% of the business at this point. If I was looking at the 80/20 of it, and I look at the whole spectrum of the business from startup to sale, really to succession. And so startup, of course, you're just thinking about the business. You want to do the math, sort this thing out. How is this going to work? I've even had people kind of at the other end of the spectrum who've retired and think, well, okay, I've spent enough time on the beach, I've traveled everywhere, I'm still alive, I've got some money. I got this business idea. And, I remember getting several notes over the years of saying, I want to thank you for your product. I had this cockamamie idea I wanted to do in my retirement. I used your business plan and found out this dog won't hunt, as they say in Texas. I saved my retirement. Thank you very much. It was a great investment in your product. I ain't going with this business because your things showed me that it's not going to work. So thank you for that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the backhanded compliment that I always love. But really, there's other stories where I would say, just to answer your question first, yeah, there's the thinking about it, there's the starting it. Now, I would advocate bootstrap, meaning don't use your own money. I try to avoid credit cards, but if you got some money, do what you can without money as far as you can. Because some people say, well, I need money to do everything. I don't have no, you can make business cards. You can write a business plan. You can put together a simple brochure. You could take pictures. You could make a half-baked prototype if that's possible. So what can you do bootstrapping wise? Then, because the investors, the farther you are down the road, that's where the investors, they want to see some traction. If you
Mm.
could sell a few to people or get orders from people, that's good. Okay, but still, okay, so then those guys, then a business plan is going to make some sense. And then you've got companies where they're, like I call it, kind of mid-journey, like you've started, you've got money, you're going. And I have one client recently, she says, I've got to take this business seriously. I need to put together a real plan because she's been doing it a long time. And she said, well, I need a real plan to really do this, get some money, hire some people, make this thing go because it's going, but kind of chugging along. But this thing could take off if I could fuel it. So there's that. And then there's the tiny home company, United Tiny Homes in Arizona. These guys are making tiny homes. They don't have to convince the investor that the world needs tiny homes. They they can't make them fast enough. They make some really cool tiny homes.
They
You know,
do. I've looked at them and I'm like, oh, it's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And so how can they make them faster? How can they make more of them? And make them better and get those order, get those what do you call it? The quantity discounts on stuff. And I told him, here's a tip for you just to throw in here. When I was a buyer at the Sharper Image catalog, what you do, I told them, I said, look, if you're buying, say you're buying microwave ovens for your tiny homes, order, and you need 100 tiny homes, 100 microwaves every month I'm making the numbers up, but order 1,200 of them from the microwave maker. And that VP, if you order 1,200 microwaves from a son, that VP should fly out and take you to lunch. Anyway, order 1,200 of them and say, you get the quantity price on 1,200 and say, I want 100 of them a month. And I want you to bill me net 30 on those 100. So they ship you 100, you pay for 100 of them 30 days later, but you're getting the order price. They get an order for 1,200, which they love. You get or the price for 1,200 piece price, but you're only buying them 100 at a time. So it's a scheduled order, and this is not rocket science to many people, but to many people it also is. But that's a way to do it if you've got a good manufacturing run. So there's that. Then I've got people. Then you're onboarding somebody. What do you give? You got this company that's going. You got the new person come in. You're the new marketing guy. Okay, well, here's the lay of the land. Here's the plan of the business. Here's the market analysis we have. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're saying. Here's what's selling. Here's how the business works. Here's the risks in our business, all that. So the marketing person doesn't come in and just not the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing and just says, let's
Right.
do all this. You think, well, wait a minute. That just disrupted a bunch of other stuff. You've got to do all of this in some kind of sequence so it fits in and you're not disrupting everything else. You want to make this work because you got other people doing stuff too. So the idea is to have everybody in your company on the same page. And one of the things, here's another tip I love to share is that my attorney in Silicon Valley once said, design your business so everybody gets rich the same way. And so with a business plan, you can get a sense of this is how you design the business and you have everybody contribute to this thing, which is why our plan is online so people can collaborate with you and you can
Mm.
fight it out if that's what it is on paper. You want to get smoke out any disagreements before you have to start writing checks. Buckminster Fuller, the famous inventor, said, a mistake in the plan requires an eraser. A mistake in the field requires a checkbook. So sort it out, in my case on screen, we help you can do that. And that it takes this otherwise daunting process, makes it, I won't say simple, but a series of simple steps. But it really helps you understand how all the moving parts of your business work. And that's what's crucial, because those mistakes are catastrophic. And you want to avoid those as much as possible. And you want to engage your people in it as well. And then at the far end of the spectrum, if you need to raise capital anywhere along the way, you're ready to go. If you want to, give the business to your kids if they want it, you get the owner's manual. If you're going to sell the business, the brokers are telling me, most businesses are unsellable, which is
Really?
frightening, especially for all
Yeah.
all of us baby boomers who someday want to sell a business. Or worse, they're a train wreck behind the scenes. So how do we sort that out? So this helps, I've got the employee manual and the other products, the whole business power tools spectrum will help you get this business more sellable. And the idea is the brokers, they got to clean it up. But if you're selling a house, the realtor is going to tell you, water the plants, clean it up, paint the place, stage the furniture so it looks good. And so that's where we help the person selling their business. So all the way along the way, it's not just startups, it's not just raising money. It's kind of like a universal, I call it the hardest working document in business, because it's there all along the way. And then the person buying the business could look at this and really understand, oh, there is a market for this. The market's growing. The market's doing this. Here's a bunch of opportunities that I can invest in by buying this business. So we pitch it to business brokers to tell them, say, get your client to do this, and you could do it with them. You could do it for them. Anyway, all that. So there's a lot of places the business works, and there's your short answer to a long question, or long answer to a short question.
No, it's perfect. And so for those of you listening, one, I'm just thinking, if you don't have a business plan, you need to reach out to Burke. We're going to share with you how to do that shortly. Because the more I'm listening, and I know the more our listeners are listening, it's like they're really checking the boxes now. What do I have in place, and what don't I have in place? And not only do you do the business plans, but you also help them with the other tools as well, which is really, really important. Hence the name Business Tools. So, Burke, can you share with us a story about a client? You don't have to name their name if you don't want to, who is struggling with growth, direction, or execution, and how you and Business Power Tools help them create their breakthrough.
Well, my favorite story to tell, it's sort of like that. Maybe it's not as complicated a situation as what you described, but here's a couple of young guys. They were jet pilots, and they wanted to start a jet charter service. And so they needed to go out and raise money to buy a jet. It's pretty simple. Jet, picture a Learjet or a Gulfstream or whatever you got, or all of the above. And so they were going to investors pitching, I need like $5 million to buy a jet or two. And investors look at that and they go, that's the investors really want some kind of scalable, explosive business where if we could just like Airbnb or something, like where you're spending money on the technology, but as people use what you've got will handle zillions of people. You don't have to hire more people. If you keep hiring more people, it's not really like that's not that scalability. Anyway, Learjets are probably even worse. I mean, you got to spend a lot of money on one thing and then use it and get incremental money back on it. Anyway, long story short, I don't know if it's his idea or mine. It sounds like it would be one of my ideas, but I'll give him credit for it. But anyway, or steal it from anyway. The point is, he went and found a gentleman who owned two Learjets, and he had them. But oftentimes what you have, you'll have a jet, and you'll put it. Somebody will manage it for you, but they also charter it out to other people when you're not using it. So it's not just sitting there on the ground. It's actually making you some money, because airplanes not flying don't make any money. So it's like an unrented apartment building. It's like, great, it's nice, but nope, it's not doing anything. Anyway, so he went to him with his plan that he made with Biz Plan Builder and showed him how he saw doing this, managing his jets and chartering them out. And of course, whenever you need your plane, you're at the top of the list. In the meantime, we're going to do all that. So they got two. Basically, the long story short, they got two Learjets, two Lear 35s for zero money. Now,
Wow.
how much money do you need to raise? There's a whole
Right.
lesson in that, where Now they need five. No, they could probably use credit cards to buy some uniforms and some hats and rent an office and make some business cards and get a phone and play. Then you're off to the races.
Yeah.
And so that was one of those stories. So you're thinking, okay, with a proper business plan, what could I get that I need that instead of getting cash, like right now, there's all this commercial real estate that seems to be empty or is empty, it seemed to be empty. But you could go to the owner and say, I really want to open up a studio, a store, or something here. Here's my deal. I'll give you a piece of the revenue from it. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's an offer that's better than it's sitting there doing nothing. Okay, at least it looks like your property is rented and somebody's using it. So there's an option. There was a company a friend of mine worked for, they made beer. And do they need to raise capital to build a brewery? No. You go to the brewery who brews beer and you say you take in this place, you take your beer formula on a hard drive and you take it to them. This is how I want your computer to mix the beer for us. You get your roll of labels. You're going to use their bottles. You get your roll of labels, you stick it in their label machine, and all their bottles come through it. The beer comes out with your formula, and it gets loaded into a truck with your name on it. And you can make beer without a brewery. I mean, it's like printing catalogs. You don't need to buy a printing press to make catalogs. You go to somebody who prints catalogs, and you have them do it for you. That's pretty obvious. So there's a number of ways you can get what you need without going to get money first. Getting money is hard because you've got to convince the person with the money who may not know your business or may not know how you intend to do this. Like, how are you going to make money with Learjets that I'm going to give you $5 million for? And, do I own the jets if something happened? It's just difficult that way. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways. That's the bootstrapping part. How much can you do without cash, without money? And you think about it, like the guy with the Learjets, unless he was a venture capitalist that looked at investment deals all day long, which he may or may not have been, or a commercial property owner, they don't get a deluge of business plans and pitches every day. And these venture capitalists, I have it on pretty good authority, they look at about 1,000 deals a year. You know how many they bet on? Handful. So you walk in there with your pitch deck and a smile and super excited, and you say, "There's a whole bunch of people out there with the problem. We're going to make a bunch go to the moon on a unicorn valuation." That isn't good enough, not to be in that top five of 1,000.
Yeah.
So, that's one. You're 1 in 200 at that rate.
Yeah. Wow. I thank you for sharing that story because you really probably gave a lot of people an aha moment because when we want to go, especially when we're the one it's our baby and we're going, okay, how do we go to market? We're thinking we have to create all of these things in order to make that happen. We can tend to overcomplicate the process and think how are we going to get the capital? How are we going to get the startup funds to even get this off the ground, especially with something like a jet? That's not something like a drop in the bucket to get started. It's not just like you're opening your computer and going, okay, hey, I'm open for business. It's a little different than that. So, but I love how you shared that they got creative and having the business plan and walking through it allowed them to go, wait a minute, there are maybe some other opportunities that we haven't explored yet that we can explore without having to go ask for money.
And we,
So,
we tell the stories in the business plan. So there's a lot of ideas in there.
oh, that's
And
great.
and there's some warnings in there too, like watch out for this, don't do that,
Yeah.
So
I also loved it earlier how you shared that it allows you to also know, especially as a startup and someone considering opening a business and a company, is this viable? Is there viability in here for me to actually succeed in the long term? Because this one of the reasons we started this podcast, and I say it a lot on here, is that the stat I heard was over 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. A lot of them fail within the first 5 years. And our goal is to flip that number. And by having you on here and sharing all of your expertise and what you do, you're supporting that. So I want to say thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about your growth. So you've built an amazing brand in the business planning space. So what are you doing today to continue to grow your visibility, to continue attracting new clients and staying relevant in a rapidly changing business environment?
well, I got to say I was getting kind of worried there because here I have this product that really does everything that it does. Yet you look at all the content and it was really it's what to do and how to do it. And the main part is what to say and how to say it. Because most of these business plans, like if you get the SBA template, it's got some stuff in it, but there's a blank sheet of paper that says, describe your management team here. Show what their highlights from their resume are. Blank. Like, how do you say that? What do I say? Now, I over time learned how to, write and say stuff. And so to me, a blank page doesn't scare me. But, we call it page fright. There's this blank page, like, what do I say? How do I say it? And it's not so much, maybe you could be a good writer. I'm not want to insult anybody's intelligence, but there's a difference in writing, just writing a story, telling a story, or writing a press release to, what do I write in a plan to an investor so they're reading this because your credibility is on the line here. You're telling a story. They're looking at, well, in venture capitalist case, 200 other deals and your deal, or 199 other deals in your deal. And so how are you the one who makes sense? And they're not going to chase you around. So, you've got to have you'll have all the answers. That's what I learned at the Sharper Image. If you could, if you can be 50 words or less, give the customer everything they need to know about buying this product. So they don't call up and go, yeah, what's that made of? How much does it weigh? Because we would go work in the call center one day a week for an hour. That was kind of just everybody, don't care who you are, president of the company, to keep it real. So
Wow.
because you're talking to people out in the world, and I take tech support calls and I don't get very many, but when I do, it's like, okay, why do you have that problem? What the hell? How'd that happen? Well, it's obviously some kind of edge case, but nevertheless. So, and what was this is I would recommend getting a job like that as first thing out of college, because rather than going at being a salesperson, these companies, they hire kids out of school to be sales reps, and they're the worst. They suck at this. They try to train them up and get them to be, but they're very mechanical. Yes, if I could sell this to you today, or if that car was red, would you buy it from me today? Like, anyway, I digress. But here I am on the phone. It was when they had those phones, they had those kind of clear cubes that lit up on them. You just punch them. And so I'd have a headphone on, and I'd be waiting, and the phone would be just dialing out all these buttons. I just punch one that was flashing, go, "Good afternoon. Thank you for calling the Sharper Image. How can I help you?" Something like that. And they say, "Yeah, that knife on page 57, I want it. Here's my American Express card number." Okay, I'm thinking I'd spend an hour. Basically, it was like fishing where the fish were jumping in the boat. I wasn't cold calling. I wasn't making pitches. I was order taking. And believe me, as a salesperson, I would love to be an order taker.
Yeah.
You know, some days I just want to take orders. I'm going to stop pitching and just take orders. That'd be nice. And so that was really quite an experience to see that they had all the information, a nice color picture. Now, obviously, we're selling products that were that complicated or technically, like comparing, like, yeah, I want that really cool Swiss Army knife. And so, but that was something about it. So anyway, there was that. I forgot why I even went off on that weird tangent, but what was that?
We were asking, I was asking about what you're doing to stay,
Yeah,
relevant, and what you're doing to stay visible in front of your people. And you were sharing what they had done and how they're, selling sales. It's sales is a thing we have to be doing inside of our
you
business.
have to you have to be promoting it constantly. I mean, I love coming on your podcast to talk. Is it podcast? I guess it'll become a podcast to share about it, because the other thing too with AI is we're all going AI crazy at the moment. There's already backlash against it, and that is the part that makes your AI company relevant is you.
Right.
It's like, here I am. I'm the guy behind this thing. It's not my AI doing it. You want to know where somebody's coming from. Like, what's a nice guy like me doing in a business like this? I'm not here, the mercenary doing this. It's like I see people out there with products that are really good. They could, I don't say they'd save the world, but they could save a certain number of people. A medical product. There's an inventor. How can I help that inventor get this invention in front of those guys so their problem goes away? But this guy needs to build a business to get it to them. So, there's all that. That's really my why behind it. But that's the thing is you want to be, people want to see the person behind the business. Look at Apple. Apple wouldn't be Apple if you didn't have Steve Jobs. If Steve
Right.
Jobs hid out in a cubicle the whole time and just kind of like hid behind his advertising, it wouldn't be what it is.
Absolutely.
And you've got all these companies out there. Jeff Bezos is out talking about stuff, about Amazon. So people get a sense that there's actually a live human being behind the company. And that's really a key ingredient. And people want to know who's behind this thing, and who am I supporting by buying their product, for one. And do they really care? Or are they just in it for the business and they're going to make money and fire people? In fact, companies who are firing their people because AI is taking their jobs are now finding that they need those people back.
Yeah,
You know,
I
people,
heard that a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago on the radio. I was just saying it on this podcast yesterday when I was interviewing with a guest. And it's crazy how, AI, people are like, oh, it's all going to solve all my problems. And they went and let go of their teams and, many people in their on their staff. And now they're finding that they have to hire them back because AI did not provide the solutions that they thought they were going to provide. It actually made their business harder and they're losing business. So now
well,
they're
and,
trying
and
to go back and hire people.
it's what they call tribal knowledge. It's that you just what you know from being there, how this place works. And
Mhm.
most of the time, and AI can handle a lot of stuff, but you've got a lot of all the edge cases. And that's where you need people. You need people in judgment. AI doesn't have judgment. It just does what it's told to do. And you have these agents, and I had an airplane and I remember putting it on autopilot. I'm at 9,500 feet, flying along. Nice day, autopilot, just keeping the wings level, pointed in the right direction. Do you think I went in the back and went to sleep? I don't think so. I mean, just because the autopilot's not exactly AI, but it's the idea. I would not let AI, these agents, run stuff because one little glitch, your business is going to go sideways at light speed because that AI is going to. So there's an old saying, well, garbage in, garbage out. That's the original one. But then the next one right behind it is to err is human. To really screw up requires a computer because it just amplifies and multiplies that mistake like crazy. And you better be watching it. So I'm watching the gas gauge. I'm still looking at the altimeter. I'm looking at the compass and the directional gyro. I'm making sure the plane is still running, just because the autopilot, it does buy me some time to look at the map and look out the window. But you know what? I'm watching what's going on. And to think that you can set it and forget it, your business is not a guided missile. It's something it takes constant management and constant working on. And, you can create a plan, which is great, but it coordinates your people. You want to have that plan, but at the same time, you've got to have the people there to, make adjustments, respond to other people. I hate these things. I go online, I have a question, and the AI, I'm Susie, your AI. And I don't really understand your question. Would you ask it again? Yeah, tell me this. I don't really understand your question. Tell me again. How about that? Well, I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's also training. That was, how the AI bot was trained, and obviously it sounds like that bot wasn't trained very well. And there should be an option to escalate it to a human. So I get where companies are using it for efficiency and maybe in as tools to support them in growth and
Yeah,
also in supporting their teams. And I think that there's, like you said, there needs to be a way to make sure that you're still providing that customer service of
yeah.
that human interaction, that relationships. Because AI is a great tool. It's great to use for certain things inside of your business. It's never going to replace you. So it's never going to replace the founder. And we're seeing more founder led marketing and things like that nowadays because I think AI has kind of pushed that forward.
Yeah.
People want to see who's actually running the company, where before you were buying the product or service. Now they're leaning more into who's the humans behind the business because we know AI is involved, right? We all know AI is involved in every single business, but we still want to kind of get to know when we're choosing where to spend our money, who are we actually giving it to, which is a great point that you were sharing. So I'm curious, if I could give you a magic wand, Burke, and you can wave it over one challenge or issue you're having right now and go poof, it disappears and goes away. What would that be and why?
Right now, I just want you to see this thing in action. I've got a YouTube video where I demonstrate. Here's what you do. Now, speaking of keeping the human in the loop, it's still, I stop you at every segment of the business plan with, okay, look, before you run the AI on this, review the prompt. Do you want 10 market segments? You want eight? You want 50? I wouldn't do 50, but and then how many? So we sort everything by highest probability, lowest risk, and lowest competition. Anyway, but the AI does the research for you. It would do about a week. What would take a week or longer of
Wow.
painful scrounging around looking for the answers. It does it like that in seconds, which is incredible. So and one guy was saying this is no longer a business plan, Burke. This is a business intelligence, business development, business engineering platform that plan. Ew, people the plan business plan almost has a stigma to it because it's like I don't want to do it. I don't blame you. I don't want to do it either, but the hard part is taken care of. So I want to answer your question. Just take a look at this thing because it's gonna tell you who your market is. I had a girlfriend. She was looking at this, and we ran it just for fun. This went on date night, right? So let's run your business through this one section. She's, oh my God, I had no idea there are that many women I could work with that need this. She became a singer-songwriter at 60. She'd, been to school, had the family, kids, ran businesses, worked for people. And at some point, it's like, when do I get to do what I want to do? I've always
Right.
wanted to write some songs and sing them. And she's got 20 songs recorded, and it's called Encore You, Encore letter U. And she's helping women because that's her sweet spot, you know, who've done it all and like, okay, who do I want to be now? And it could be anything. Anyway, so and she realized, oh my God, this is at the top of the list because I also put in the prompt, give me the 20% that are going to generate 80% of this business. So we keep it in perspective so you know what to focus on. And so, she was blown away by that. And we ran it through chat. She ran it through Claude. And we want to do is run it through chat, run it through like Gemini, and then run it through Claude. So that way you get this triple filter through it. But even just the chat is awesome for research to come back with numbers. Who's your market, who are your market segments sorted, who's your ideal customer sorted out. I also ask, what if I do the contrarian, like what if this doesn't work? Like, okay, because an investor can say, well, yeah, well, what if that customer doesn't like you? It doesn't work, whatever they do. And, then it comes, and I'd say, give me three responses to that. So tell me what's going to fail. Tell me three ways to fix it. And even down at the bottom, I've got a thing where it's got, given all the stuff in the plan above, everything about it, give me three elevator pitches. I want them to be kinesthetically activating, like Tony Robbins would say, explosive. He uses all those words. And how would Elon Musk simplify this? How would Martha Stewart make it elegant? How would Steve Jobs, whatever, do his thing? And so go be those four or five people, and you can put in your own people. I mean, this is the beauty of it. It's an editor right there. You just say, well, I don't want Steve Jobs. I want, Richard Branson. Okay, I don't care. You put in your person, and it could be three elevator pitches. One, pitch this business to an investor. Two, pitch the product or service to customers. And three, pitch this business to somebody who wants to buy it, depending on what you want to do. And so I like to think back to one of your earlier questions is who's this for? It's really for the person in the middle of their business who's thinking, okay, how do I fund this thing? How do I take it to the next level? How do I get it sorted? Because I haven't done a plan yet. It's going like, oh my God, it's taken off. Now what do I do? Like, I gotta rein this in and get a grip here. And then all the way to the person you're going to hand it off to the kids or you're going to sell the business. Oh, and I missed one. That's the person who's in the corporation thinking, I'm out of here. It could be the people get laid off because of the AI, but generally you're sick of the 9 to 5. You want to do the 5 to 9, which is that after work part. Anyway, I say, you want to plan your escape carefully before you jump ship. You want to, plan that jump, do the math, do that thing that retired people did and find out if this idea is worth jumping ship for.
Right.
Or, and the variation on that is, if it's something you could go to your boss or the company you work for and say, I've been here all this time without firing me or me leaving. You know who I am. You know what I do. Here's this idea. We could do this. Can you fund this in the business? And I will, you're already on the payroll. You've already got the benefits. Most people don't want to leave because they don't want to cough up the benefits. You want to keep the medical benefits at all costs. But yeah, so you go to the business you're in and say this. It's called intrapreneurship. You start a new business within a business. And more often than not, I mean, I would say they're going to say, great idea, let's do it. Or like, if you're going to leave the company, let me invest in you because I believe in you and I think this is a great idea and we could help you promote it, whatever. But there's a variation in there that you can, with a plan, you got flexibility. You can do
Right.
that. But the trick is you've got to get started with a plan. And we have a spreadsheet that does all the math. So you don't have to be an MBA or CPA or a spreadsheet or financial expert. And the system will tell you, give me the market segments that are the best, show me the compound annual growth rate, and how many of these people are in it right now. That's the
Yeah.
starting point. You just paste that into the spreadsheet, and that's the start of your revenue model, because that's the first place investors are going to look does this dog hunt? Is there anybody going to buy this thing from me? Who are they? Where are they? You don't want to say, like I heard this dentist say, he's got a great dental product. He goes, it's a $10 billion market. If we just got 1%, we'd be a $100 million company. Don't, please don't do that. Just erase that thought from your thinking completely. Don't ever, ever, ever say that. Just saying that makes the investors see that exit sign
That they
and
cringe, yeah, they're out the door. So, well, it sounds like you have really simplified this process for businesses, which I want to say thank you because I know for me it's a very like just looking when we looked at it, it was just like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to figure out and put together. And you can kind of like again, like you said, just put it to the side and never do it. So can you share with people, Burke, how they can connect with you and how they can find you?
I'm at businesspowertools.com. I think it shows on the screen there if my hand will show up.
Yeah.
Businesspowertools.com or burkefranklin.com is my personal site, but businesspowertools.com is where you'll see it. And I've got a video on there and demos. And if you want to talk to me, and I have a couple of people that they were working on it. I noticed they weren't getting it done. I called her up and I said, "Do you just want me to do it for you?" She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, I will do it for you, but I'll charge you $4,900 to do it because it's work for sure.
Right.
But then again, you
Right.
got me. It's kind of like we do an MRI of the industry or an X-ray, but you need someone to interpret the X-ray, and then okay, let's make this thing make sense. But the AI does a lot of that for you. But we go through every section, and then the only challenge really becomes reading it and going, oh my God, there is a market. Maybe I need to shift my focus to this market because there's more of them there than here. And so anyway, but yeah, you're reading and what you learn about your business is extraordinary. I look running my own through it. It's like I got really excited about it. Even the pitches at the bottom. I'm like, oh, that changes everything. So, and you need to have that. And it's like I say, there you look at this menu, and I wonder like what part of this would an investor ignore? None, nothing, you know. And what you
Yeah.
can do is you can even, I did this with the tiny home folks. I was online with them. We had the financial model up and they had their investors on looking at everybody was in their different offices, but we're sharing the financial model on their subscription. And so I was looking at their subscription. The investors were looking at it, they were looking at it, and they had me there to be the guide just to show the investor, okay, the investors, well, how do you raise the prices on this? Well, go to this page, click that, change that number from raising it 5% to 10%. Numbers change, valuation changes, revenue, everything just automatically recalculates throughout this model. And so you can show it to people online. You can collaborate online. You can export it, but then you end up with this. Everybody's making changes. You've got all these different copies. Do it all in one place. Save
Yeah.
yourself some sanity as long as you. So a lot of this is really designed for sanity purposes. Simplicity, sanity, collaboration, cooperation, coordination. I'm
I
running out of
love it.
words, but
I love it. Yeah. It's amazing.
businesspowertools.com. Yeah. And,
Yes.
I would recommend you and, put a link on I'll get you, give you a referral fee, put a link on your own website and have a place called resources for everybody you talk to and have a place that come here to your website. I appreciate the pitch to mine, but heck, they could find people on your site and you'd make a few bucks.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, for those of you listening right now, if you're like listening, going, I've got to do this now, go to businesspowertools.com and we'll definitely work on the affiliate. But I want people
Yeah.
to go straight to you. And if you haven't, connect with Burke. He's amazing, as you can tell. He'd love to support you. He's very knowledgeable. He knows what he's doing. This is not one piece of your business that you want to have sitting on the sidelines. You really want to get this done
Yeah, you
because it's
do.
going to bring you a lot of clarity, especially if you haven't even started yet and you're like, I know what I want to do and I want to get this started. This piece is going to even let you know if it's even viable. So before you start investing your own money or going to other people for money and learning that this isn't viable, you can find out ahead of time. And it'll give you a lot of clear direction and tell you exactly what action takes to steps to take next. And you also have the support of Burke. So go to businesspowertools.com, connect with Burke. We have all of his information in the show notes. Burke, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. It's been an amazing conversation. Hopefully we can bring you back in a year and we can have another conversation and see where you're at then. For those of you listening, again, go to businesspowertools.com. Thank you for being here with Burke and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlights.
Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it. Love your questions.